Hello again, this is Luke Bergdorf. I'm here with Preston Hurwitz and Assistant Chief John Murphy. Uh, Chief Murphy, if you would just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, John Murphy, hired in 1972 and retired in '04, and have 4 grandchildren, two, 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 two girls, 2 boys. I'll get it right in a minute. And so they've they didn't have any inspiration to go to the fire department, and I didn't push them. So, but it was a great career for me. I really didn't know what I was. Well, I was a volunteer firefighter in Forest Hill for 4 or 5 years before going to Arlington, and then it was I guess a child's dream come true, because you can see I had a whole room at my mom and dad's house with just old fire trucks, and so I didn't have room here, so I only kept the ones that I had stories for, and I can't remember those. And so but it was a great career, a lot of support, and wouldn't trade it.
You wouldn't trade it for the world?
No.
Did you grow up in Forest Hill?
No, I grew up in north side of Fort Worth. Went to, excuse me. I lived 6 blocks from the elementary school, 6 blocks from the high school, 6 blocks from the junior high. And I went to elementary school where my dad went to high school. So it's a long time there. But no, we moved to Forest Hill in, I believe, 66 or 67. And then I joined Arlington in 72. So.
And you volunteered for Forest Hill for 4 years prior to getting hired on?
Oh, yeah, on and off a lot of times.
How old were you when you started volunteering?
Well, I guess I was 16.
And what drew you to volunteer for the fire department?
Well, they wouldn't let me drive the trucks, and so I wanted to prepare myself for that, and so just tagging along with a boyhood dream come true. So.
And was Arlington your first job?
Yeah, first paid job, yes.
Did you do anything before you became a fireman?
I worked at the warehouse, drove the forklift, and cut lawns and the basic.
Now, you said you got hired in 1972. What was your ID number whenever you got hired on?
84.
84. And you got hired on to open up Station 7?
Yes, they were building Station 7, and it wasn't completed, so they assigned me to Station 3, so I got to drive the tanker and the officer around at Station 3. Didn't know where I was going, so he had to tell me, turn here, so.
What was kind of your hiring process like?
Gee, I know that we had a written test, then we had a physical ability test, and you went to rookie school.
What was that rookie school like?
It was there in Arlington at the old training building down on Sanford Street. There was 5 or 6 of us, I guess, that were in that class. So.
Do you remember who all got hired with you?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Homer Phillips, Gilbert Cervantes, Roy Gill. I believe his name was Perrin, David Perrin. And there was Charlie Langham. He was not with Arlington, but he was with, I think he was with Haltom City. And then Moorhead was the instructor. Is that 5?
I believe so. What was that kind of training like? What did y'all go over? How long was it?
It was 3 months. It was mostly classroom. We just didn't have the facilities to do the. We did a lot of running with Don, you know. So, but and Roy Gill, I guess this was his second time around, so he kind of helped us through the process and everything. So, but it was a good time. I didn't like sitting in class all that much, but it was good.
Good. After that 3 months, what was the first station that you went to?
Threes.
Threes?
Mm-hmm.
What was working there like? Do you remember your first shift?
The first shift. Well, back then, the firefighter drove the tanker, the officer rode the tanker with the firefighter, and then the engineer drove the engine by himself. And so that's the way it didn't get to do much. I got to stay with the tanker most of the time. And so, like I said, I didn't know the district, so I had to depend on the officer to tell me which way to turn and which way not to turn. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember running fires back whenever you first started?
Yeah, I don't remember the street, but I know that we had the problem with driving the tanker. The officer always got to go in with the hose line, and I never, had to stay with the tanker and everything. It was one of those big 500-gallon tank trucks, and then the engine. And I don't have a picture of it. No.
I know we have some pictures of it on our drive, but
yeah, there was tanker 3, tanker 6, and then we got one at 7s, and I don't know where. Maybe 5s. 5s might have been a reserve.
do you remember that crew that was at Station 3 whenever you first started?
Randy Rudu Larson was the engineer, and I don't remember who the officer was. The officer may have been Clyde Truax.
And how was working with those guys?
Oh, well, Randy never shuts up, and Clyde never shuts up either. So, it's constant bickering back. Well, not bickering, but just battering back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good.
You never had to carry the conversation?
No, I started it, but I didn't finish it.
Mm-hmm. How long were you at Station 3 for?
I think it was almost a year before they opened. It might not have been quite that long, Station 7. And then went to 7, and then I think it was Hayden Templeton. I can't remember. Remember Hayden for sure.
You went to Station 7 when it first opened up?
Yeah.
What was that like, opening up that station?
Well, if you don't mind going out to the restroom in the backyard, in the porta potty back in the back, it's okay.
They don't have plumbing yet?
They didn't have it running, no. It wasn't so. But that was, you made a quick trip in the winter.
Mm-hmm. What was the call volume like?
Zilch. No, we might have made, I don't know, 10 or 15 runs a month, maybe. Backing up, going into other stations was much more.
Mm-hmm.
But our first due district was not.
It was not very busy?
No.
How long were you at Station 7 for?
Gee. I guess until I made driver.
What year did you make driver?
I have no idea.
Do you know how long you had been on the line? How long you had been a firefighter?
Well, let's see, probably 3. It was my first attempt on the driver's test, so 2, 3 years, I'm not sure.
When you became a driver, where did you go?
Where did I go?
What station did you go work at? Were you still Station 7?
Station 7, yeah. I think a couple of months, and then they moved me downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed downtown as a driver, and I drove the ladder truck, the old open cab ladder truck.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first injury was with that truck. I went to a house fire. It was up on a hill, and I slipped coming down and it broke my right radial head. So
Ouch.
I remember that one. So,
How was it like driving that ladder truck?
well, it was a standard shift, and there was not too many people that could drive it. So I had a heads up on that because I could drive a standard shift,
Mm-hmm.
and it was neat. You know, back then it was usually nobody with you. The ladder went by itself. You know, so and then we moved to the lieutenant riding the ladder truck, which was not very often, but I went from 7s to 1s. Like I said, I stayed there I enjoyed 1s, you know, because it was a busy house
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So
What were some of your favorite calls driving that ladder truck?
probably the one I remember the most was the captain telling me to slow it down going down Highway 80. I was going to the mall. He said, slow this damn thing down, you know. So, okay. So, we had the Crisco fire. That was the big one. We were coming in, I guess I was coming in on duty that day when I think we spent 2 or 3 shifts on that. And then I don't know, there's so many different ones that I could go into, but it's not enlightening. I mean, it's just routine stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But-
What was it like driving those open cab trucks?
Well, if you don't mind wearing a plastic helmet and getting hit in the head with hail, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed driving the ladder. So, but I guess it was that was the 6s had the snorkel, and then 5 had the old American of France snorkel. And the biggest thing going to 5s is that you had to realize that when it got to the top, it was going to come down a little bit. So we had a lot of laughs with that. So
Yeah, other guys have talked about how kind of unstable that thing was.
yeah, it's,
and how rickety.
It goes up. You think it's stopping, and then it goes. It doesn't drop that much, you know. But it's if you haven't been up there before, a lot of handprints on that.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. How long were you a driver at Station 1 for?
I guess whatever the minimum requirement for lieutenant was, that was my minimum time there. So I was fortunate enough to, every time I took a test, I made a promotion.
So you promoted to lieutenant? Did
Yes.
you stay at Station 1 when you promoted to lieutenant?
Yes, stayed there as a captain, and then when I made battalion chief, I went to 8s. But that's maybe ways down the line there.
Mm-hmm. So you were at 1s for a good while.
Yes, yeah.
How many years would you say that you might have been at Station 1?
6,
6 years?
maybe. That's just a rough.
So you were there late 70s, early 80s. What was kind of the district like during that time?
Well, let's see. To the north, it was Randall Mill. To the south, it was Park Row. to the east, it was, I guess it was Six Flags Mall, or as far as you could go. And now I'm not talking about the first due district. I'm talking about just the response.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the ladder had the whole west side coverage.
What was kind of the calls that y'all were running in one's district? Was there a lot of fires, or?
No, there wasn't that many what I would call good fires, but we had our share.
Mm-hmm.
Had some older houses down around UTA. The funny thing there is, going back to when I was a driver, when the first line I laid as a driver, I laid it to, I can't remember the name of the street, it was down in UTA, but I tied into the same hydrant on my last time I laid a line. So that's sort of unique, from two different directions, but using the same hydrant.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell down both times. There's a puddle of water there, and so it was. I'll always remember that.
And so you made lieutenant and captain at Station 1. What was kind of it like being an officer there, kind of overseeing your crew?
Well, having that big of a ship, that big of a crew was a change, because I was used to, 3 people and sometimes just 2. Especially at Station 7, we'd run with I'd drive the tanker and the officer would drive the engine, or vice versa. And there, you had a driver for each rig, and so it was interesting. You made a lot of calls. There wasn't really that many fires back then. But like I say, the Crisco fire was probably one of the biggest ones. And then my Swans jump there at Mill Run Apartments. So,
kind of tell us about that, because that picture of you jumping out that balcony is kind of somewhat famous. Tell us about that fire.
Well, I don't remember what time it was in the day, but we pulled out of the station. We could see the column of smoke. I was on the ladder, and it was Paul Tate and myself. And our assignment was to go to the breezeway on the west end of the fire, try to cut the fire off. And I can't.
There's the picture of it up there.
Yeah, that's the last breeze. That's the west. It's the east breezeway. There was a breezeway, then a center breezeway, and then another one. And our assignment was it was running that way, and I should have known it was already past us. But we were going down the hall. Paul was in the in the first room, and I looked down the hallway. I could see the fire coming down from the roof, or not from the roof, but from the ceiling. So he yelled at him to get back. He got back, and he made it down the ladder, and that's when the little sheetrock hit me and knocked me down. And I knew that I could get to the ladder, but if I got to the ladder and turned around, I'd get all that fire and everything. So I just bailed.
So you jumped off the balcony?
Yeah.
And I guess someone caught a good picture of that, right, as you were...
Yeah, I've got, well, National Enquirer. I got clippings from Paris, and who knows where else. But people I didn't know just, would write and say, hey, it's at Christmas, December the 14th, and this is what I don't know if y'all can see this or not, but this is what it looked like. This was the east end.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to cut it off, but we didn't make it. But it was was one of those times that split-second decision, can mean the difference between you being here and not being here.
So that picture went all around the world.
Yeah, it was in. Well, this was from Cincinnati, and there was a photographer from the Star Telegram that was in New York. He sent me one, and then Los Angeles. And they always told me, said, well, when you want to see which one it is, look for the National Enquirer with Valerie Bertinelli's picture on it. So I made yeah. So it's I don't remember who sent me this one. Anyway, it was humbling to get, letters, cards saying, hey, I hope you're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
People I didn't even know. I think I knew two out of all of those that, so it was quite an experience. I guess the worst part was I didn't get burned that bad, but when I went to the hospital, they put this salve all over my face. And then when my wife and oldest son came in, they both burst out in tears. So, really humble experience.
Mm-hmm. Were there, you mentioned that fire and the Crisco fire. Were there any other notable fires in your career that you remember to this day?
Wistful World Apartments. We had, it's been too long ago.
Yeah.
I know we had some, but.
So you were a captain, a lieutenant, and a driver at Station 1. Then you said you made battalion chief and went to Station 8. Tell us about your time as a battalion chief.
It was interesting. I guess really I started as a battalion at Station 1 for a brief time, and then they moved us to the new Station 8. And it was you had to approach things differently. As a company officer, I could go out and say something to another officer. It wasn't that big of a deal. But as a chief officer, I always have my fit to call the station I'm going to and say, hey, we're coming out, because I didn't want to surprise them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that the officers appreciated, me letting them know that I'm coming out and not, trying to catch them, which I wasn't doing something they shouldn't be doing. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but I had three good fits. David Ojeski, David McMullen, and I can't remember who the other one was, but they kept me out of trouble. Trying to think of the other. We had numerous 3-alarm, 4-alarm apartment fires, and had some pretty good sized houses too. So, but those are the ones that really stand out in.
Mm-hmm. How, as a chief, how would you kind of run a fire? What were some of kind of the things that would go through your mind?
Well, I guess what I would do was the fit would stay with the car, and I'd make a circle of if I could make a circle of the area, and then come back and we'd make up what are we going to do. We want so and so here, so and so there, so and so here. If you see something you don't like, you change it, and so it was sort of a team effort. And I had the utmost trust in those fits to make the right decisions, and they kept me out of a lot of trouble. So.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of the incident technicians that you worked with?
You mean as a chief's aide?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I could say David McMullen stands out. Great individual. David Ojeski. I can't remember. I could, if I could see your picture, I could tell you who.
Mm-hmm.
But just
How long were you battalion chief for?
Well, I guess it was until I made assistant chief, and I don't know how long I was there.
You're the assistant chief of the department for a good little bit?
Yeah, I was in operations for a while. Then they moved me to fire prevention. Spent some time there, and then had resource management. So I got to travel around quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You got to see all the kind of corners of the department in a way.
Yeah, and I think having those incident technicians that I could just turn it over to helped me a lot to gain a lot of insight into what's transpiring. And I knew who I could really trust and count on. And if I told them to do something, I knew that it was going to get done. So.
Mm-hmm. What was it like being an assistant chief, kind of running a good bit of the department?
Well, it was. I won't say it was a challenge, but it was. Each area is different. The personnel that you're working with is different. Obviously, operations is all firefighters pretty much, but then you get into your civilian staff. You have to have a little finesse to get through on that, and so a lot great people to work with.
Kind of talking about your career as a whole, who are some of the people that you worked with early on or that you worked with in your career that really mentored you or poured into you and taught you a lot of what you know?
Billy Shanklin.
Did you work with him?
Yes.
What was it like working with him?
Well, it was sort of like, we knew what we were going to do. He'd say something, he didn't have to explain what he wanted done. And great individual. And, he had a way of challenging you. And you really didn't understand that he was challenging you. But he got the message across.
Mm-hmm.
So he was out. I didn't work with him at Station 7, but worked with him as, I think we were both at Station 8 for a while. And then he made deputy, I believe. And so, good friend.
Mm-hmm. Kind of talking about the equipment you used. In your time, you probably saw fire trucks change, hoses change, tools change. What were kind of some of the big changes in your career that made a big impact on how y'all did business?
Well, I think, obviously open cab trucks had an impact. If you're soaking wet when you get there, it's sort of hard to gather yourself and get going. We went with the four-way hydrant valves, and
What about like air packs? Did you see a lot of change in regards to the air packs?
Yeah, we had a combination of MSA and Scott's when I first got there, and I think by the time I left, it was all Scott's. So it was the same way with the apparatus. We tried not so much in Arlington, but in Carrollton, trying to have the same manufacturer make the apparatus, so you don't have to. This apparatus company does it this way, this one does it this way. So we tried to standardize as much of the equipment, so you didn't have to really think that much. You do.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions you're thinking about?
Yeah, what was kind of the culture around the air packs when you first got on? Did people really like wearing them or not as much?
I don't think they wore them. Whether they really wanted to or not, it was sort of those you will. And I know that when I was driving the tanker, the officer would be inside, and I have to go put an air pack on and set the gauges and everything and go in with him. So I was a little behind the time frame there. So, but air packs, I think they realized that it was for their best good to wear those, and knock on wood again. I never had to be pulled out for not wearing my air pack. So
Kind of going into some of the station life, were there a lot of pranks going around at the station, or a lot of horseplay?
oh yeah, we used to have, especially at Station 7 when there's 3 of us out there, we had these little dart guns that have the sticky thing, and one would be the aggressor, and the other 2 would go hide, and you do that. And so, I mean, you're out there 24 hours a day, and you're not doing that much. So, but yeah, that was didn't have any dangerous pranks, but there was some pranks that would go on. So.
Mm-hmm. Was there a signature meal that you cooked?
I didn't really cook that much. We had partners. I cooked with Henderson Stepney. Never get that right. Stepney Henderson or Henderson Stepney. I was the dishwasher. He was an excellent cook.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if it was my meal, it was taco salad.
Taco salad. That's a classic.
Yeah.
Do you remember the worst meal you ever ate at the fire station?
No. I don't recall. I didn't like some of them, but I don't know that I had a really. I guess if it was anything, it was liver and onions. I couldn't go with the liver and onions.
Yeah. Was there kind of like a lot of pride in what station you worked at? Were guys really happy where they were? And
I think so. Especially at 1s and 8s, because it was both of them were busy houses,
mm-hmm.
and they got along well. And had good officers. Had Weldon Kahn was a captain at Station 1. Roger Mueller was a lieutenant, and Galen Moore was the chief out at Station 8.
Was there anything that you were really passionate about, that you really harped on, or that you really believed in?
Well, obviously the SCBAs, and speed. After my captain told me to slow down, I would tell everybody to slow down. And I think just the firefighter safety, anything had to do with that was really into doing whatever I could to maintain the. So it's, I've been to the hospital a couple, 3 times, and I don't want them to have to go to the hospital. So
Mm-hmm. What were kind of some of your best memories at the stations or on calls?
probably just, especially at ones, sitting around the dinner table telling stories. A lot of good stories that go into play, and then camaraderie with the individuals. I made it a point to try to get along with everybody. It didn't matter which division or section they were in, and when somebody, excuse me, when a lieutenant comes back and said, "Hey, you told me you were going to do something and you did it," that means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to tell me again.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him the first time, and so that didn't happen too often.
What rank or position did you enjoy the most out of your whole career?
Probably firefighter. I really enjoyed getting in and mixing it up, and it's supervisory roles are supervisory roles. You're trying to not outguess yourself, but there's a lot of, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, people are depending upon you to make the right decisions and do your best to do what's best for the overall organization.
What sort of advice would you give people who are in that decision role, making capabilities?
Say that again.
What advice would you give the fire officers, the leaders, the people who are making the decisions? What advice would you give them?
Always have safety in the back of your mind and watch out for your personnel. That's the main thing. A house can burn, but firefighters can't burn. And so, and if you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't beat around the bush. And, have I know with Chief Moore, we could jack around with him. As a matter of fact, we hosed him down with an aerial ladder. And, it's just part of it. And I think just having an open mind and understanding that different people in the organization have different ideas, and it's always my division or it's the best, but we're all part of the Arlington Fire Department, and so.
What would you say kind of the mission of the fire department is?
Well, obviously, the first thing that I look at is the safety of the citizens and then the safety of the firefighters, and to do whatever they can to prevent accidents from occurring and fires from occurring if they can. So it's not putting the wet stuff on the red stuff, but that's the most fun part of the organization. But in having an understanding of what you're there for. They've hired you to do a job, and they expect you to do that job, whether you're in fire prevention, resource management, or operations. You may piss some people off in other divisions, but you have to do what you think is right and have the courage to do that.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, looking back on your career, was one of your greatest achievements?
That's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
You look at your career and it flashes by you, and having people think that they can come and talk with you. Doesn't matter which division it's in, what section it's in, they can come talk with you, and you listen to what they're saying and take action. I think I had obviously with McMullen and Ojeski, I had those fits that, we thought along the same lines, and we understood where we're coming from, and do what you can, do the best that you can for the citizens and the firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunate that I don't think I had anybody really, firefighters, really that seriously injured in a fire. I guess I set the example there. It's a bad example. But
What do you miss most about being an Arlington firefighter?
well, I guess the camaraderie. I knew everybody there, and they knew where I was coming from, and I think I knew where most of them were coming from. And when we moved from Forest Hill to Arlington, I spent 32 years or 33 years of my life there. So it was seeing a lot of changes. And
Would you change anything about your career?
I probably wouldn't have driven as fast with the captain on it. No, I think it worked out. I enjoyed my time as a volunteer there in Forest Hill, and had some good folks to work with there. And then I got the opportunity to go to Arlington and met a tremendous amount of great folks there. And then when I retired from there, it was I know my words to Chief Paulsgrove when I went in to tell him, I said, "Hey, I don't want to talk. Here's my letter." When I left, and it was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
After 32 years, it's difficult to leave a place.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give yourself, looking back, if you could talk to the firefighter that started in 1972? What advice would you give yourself?
Do the very best that you can in whatever your assignment is, whether you like the assignment or not, but do your very best. And remember, your citizens' lives are in your hands, firefighters' lives are in your hand. So,
Mm-hmm. What kind of if you were to talk to some of the firefighters today, maybe in a driver's role or an officer's role, what advice would you give them on doing their job?
well, be the very best you can be at whatever you're doing. And, I guess the thing that goes back, I guess it was my retirement ceremony that from there in Arlington, David Crimmins got up and said, when Chief came to Station 1 as a driver, he knew the district better than we did. And so you prepare yourself for whatever you're going to do, and do the very best that you can. I don't know whether I was deserving of that comment or not, but I appreciated it. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were the interim chief before Paulsgrove. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess I was the interim chief between Strickland and Paulsgrove for a while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Two different worlds. One was sort of a warm and fuzzy guy, and the other one was a cut and dried black and white. You know, engines do this, trucks do this. Never the two shall meet. And it's not to say anything against them. That's just the way they were brought up and handled it and everything. But that's probably the
And you retired. You retired in 2004.
right.
Did you do anything after you retired?
I went to work in Carrollton, and I don't remember when it was. It was 04. I think I took three months off because I couldn't draw TMRS from two departments within 3 months, and so. But it was. I guess I got. We used to have the stair climb at the ballpark, and they told me that day that we had the stair climb that I'd made chief in Carrollton. So that was a shock, you know. So
What was it like being the fire chief in Carrollton?
it was a whole new ball game because you only had 6 stations or 7 stations, 6 stations for a while, and the the culture is different. They have a way of doing things. They've been doing it for 32 years or whatever, and Carrollton's been doing it away for 32 years, so you have to adjust and adapt. And it was a culture shock,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it was a good move, and had a good crew. I mean, a good department. So assistant chiefs, and he became the chief, and can't complain.
Yeah.
I could, but wouldn't do any good.
Any last words of wisdom?
Well, do your very best. If you commit to something, commit to it and finish it. And, treat everyone the way that you would want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that goes a long way. If people understand that you really care for them, whether they tell you in return or not, which you know. And
I guess so. Right now, there's about 60 probies on the department right now. What would
Wow.
yeah, there's quite a few of us running around. So, kind of, what advice would you have for those of us that are just starting out?
well, make a commitment to do your very best for yourself and for the organization and for those that work around you. There's not another. There's not a better job around. Or I don't think there is. Izzy, go. She usually comes in here and sits here and watches the people walk by. But yeah, I had, I retired in I guess 17 from Carrollton, and I think it was March. And in December, I found out that I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Spent Christmas Eve in the emergency room and New Year's Eve in the emergency room. And so It makes you think, especially my wife. I mean, she's a rocker. Couldn't get by without her. And she's the whole family's always supported me. My oldest, but none of them wanted. The older son lives in Arlington, and Jonathan just moved. Well, he didn't just move; he's in from California, and he's the star of the family. He's produced a couple of movies, and was in two ABC series, The Trail to Hope Rose and Life on Mars, and so. But they've been very supportive. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But
Yes, sir. Well, I thank you for letting us come by and talk with you.
well, you're quite welcome.
Yes, and
Haven't really talked that much with the oncologist. Says, hey, don't keep your distance.
mm-hmm.
And things are better. Things are under control, and I'm hanging in there. And so it's good to see you guys. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll know at least two people out there.
Yes, sir. And a lot of them will know you now. So
Is Gibson? No, Gibson's retired,
he's retired. Yes, sir.
and Dunn is retired.
Doug,
Curtis Dunn.
Curtis Dunn. Yes, sir.
Curtis.
He's retired.
Yeah, our grandsons played football together, right? Opposing teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw Curtis quite a bit. And I'm trying to grow the mustache, but I can't do it.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Thank y'all for taking the time to come out and